Hey everybody, Happy New Year. Alright, I'm gonna start this video by just playing this four bar section, let's call it. Notice I'm in C major here. I'm going to change it to E. See if we can do that on the fly. Yep. Let's change it to F sharp. I haven't tried a minor key. Let's try that. How about that's D major. Let's try D minor. That's not working. Let's try harmonic minor. No. Melodic minor. No. Looks like we gotta be in a major key. I haven't played around with the modes, but so now we're in G major. So major works great. Let's go back to C. Okay, so what I'm going to do is try to kind of reverse deconstruct what I've done here in reverse order. And I usually don't do this, but I thought in this case it was better to start with kind of the end result rather than the beginning. But this what I've done here basically relies on an idea that I got from a fantastic website, and I'll put a link to this YouTube video, but the channel is called Improvise for Real, and they came up with a very simple way of developing ear training. And you have to go to the website to see it. It's very, very simple, and that's the beauty of it. But in this particular video, they call this 1625 chord progression - ear training. And again, I'll put a link to it. So what we've got here is the classic 1625 major chord progression, also made famous by Heart and Soul, if you know that tune, but thousands of other songs as well. I think Sherry Baby is a 1625. I read that somewhere. One of the cool things about this website is that they actually, when they give you these chord progressions and they use them for ear training, they give you a list of some famous songs that use the progressions, and I really like that. All right, so what they do is if you take a look here on my browser, you'll see this folder called Major 1625 Melody Paths. Now this term is used on this website, the Improvise for Real website. They call these things melody paths. And what they do is they just create, they give each scale note a number. So in C major, it's 1 through 7. It's just that simple. So C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, and up to 7. B is 7. Okay, and they just give the scale notes these simple numbers. Now, instead of using do, re, mi, fa, sol, the traditional solfege labeling system is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, which is obviously in Italian, and that's the way you learn solfege traditionally. But I think that they scrapped that idea and just went with numbers, and personally I like it. So if you look here on the right, you'll see all these phrases. What have I got? About 20 of them, and they're all in terms of RapidComposer, each one is a scale note phrase. Now most of them are, like if you look at this one, 3 3 4 2, we can easily translate that in C major. 3 is E, and 4 is F, and 2 is D. Okay, these are just the simple scale note numbers. So what we've got, and what they do for this ear training, they either use whole notes or half notes. Some of the measures they'll use half notes. So what I did in copying these what they call melody paths, for the half notes, I just put it in parentheses. So like here we have 3, this one here, 3 3 2 1 2. So this is play on the first measure E, play on the second measure E, play on the third measure a half note D and a half note C, and then on the fourth measure play D. Okay, let me do this one here, so you really I'll tell you what, it's actually going to be a lot more clear if you go to their website and you just spend this YouTube is a little less than 10 minutes, and I strongly recommend you go and just watch it. I think this thing they came up with is absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And you know what? I'm looking at this thing, and there's only 5.5 thousand views. It's granted it's 2 months old, but this website, this deserves a lot more traffic than it's getting. That's my take. So I wanna praise them and try to help them, because this idea is really, I think, really helpful for us as RapidComposer users. All right, that's my speech. So anyway, let's do another one. 5665. So what is this? This is G A A G, right? They're all whole notes except the ones in parentheses. Let's do, this is the simplest one. 1 1 1 2. C C C D. Okay, you get the idea. It really couldn't be much more simple than that. So what I did is I just went in, and I created these phrases. And obviously I mapped them to scale notes. So let me double click on this phrase here. And by the way, you can see the name of it. This phrase is 1 1 2 1 2. Okay, so if we double click on this. Now, what I did, you might notice that we're actually not playing 1 1 2 1 2, because 1 1 2 1 2 would be C, C, D, C, D, right? And that's not what we've got here. What we've got is E, E, G. So that would be 3, 5. We've got a 3, 5, 4, 1, 5. So what gives here? Well, what happened, what's going on, and you'll see this later, is I have this apply melody. Now, if I take this off, take this variation off, you can see there's our phrase, our original phrase without the variation. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, C, C, D, C, D. Okay? But the beauty of these phrases combined with the power of RapidComposer is that we can put these variations on them and end up with this. Okay, now listen to the difference. Okay, listen to the difference. I'll play the whole thing. Let me just click on the phrase. Okay, so that's our CC, DC, D. Now I'll hit the apply melody variation. E, G, F, C, G. Okay? A little bit more interesting, I think, pretty obviously. Okay? So, let me double click on the phrase. Now notice something interesting if you haven't seen this before. When you have a phrase with a variation applied and you go to the phrase editor, you're not going to see the variation, and that's the way it should be. You're not going to see the variation. The variation is applied to the phrase after the fact. It doesn't actually change the underlying phrase, and actually, when you think about it, that's exactly what you want. Okay, you don't want the raw material to be changed. What you want is for variations to operate on the raw material, and so that's what RapidComposer does, and it's brilliant. So transcribing this is easy peasy, right? I mean, like I said, it's either whole notes or half notes. So I set the snap to 1/4. I would have set it to a half, but it doesn't. RC doesn't have a half. And I set the grid to 1/4 because we're only doing a whole and half notes. So here's my one, and notice the mapping. Look at these. You can see the Roman numerals. That's how. And up here we have scale note relative. And I'll click on this. I'll right click so we see it is a scale note, note kind. You can always check. Right click on the note and check that your mapping is correct. And I want to emphasize again that mapping these phrases properly is really important. Okay, so there we go. There's the C again, and here we have a half note. It's mapped to the second scale note, and obviously, remember, this can be any scale. That's why in the beginning I showed you, I changed scale for the whole section, and everything played exactly the way you'd expect. That's because we're using this relative note mapping scheme. That's the power behind it. We don't have to do anything fancy to change scales. It's automatic. So we've got our 2, and then we got our C, and then we've got our 2 again. Okay, so you're not going to have any difficulty going to this website and using, what I did was I just paused as each melody path was played. I just kind of paused it with my remote, and I was in my phrase editor, and I just created the phrase, and it was really simple because a lot of times they just change one note, so you just drag maybe one phrase was this 1 1 2 1 2, and maybe the next one is 1 1 2 3 2. So you just, all you're really doing is like dragging one note. Sometimes it was pretty quick. I don't think it took me more than 15 minutes tops to do all those 20, maybe, and probably not even that long. Okay. So that's where I got these phrases. All these are direct transcriptions of the melody paths in this particular YouTube video from Improvise for Real. Okay? And you can do the same. It'll only take you a few minutes. And it's good practice. You'll learn something by transcribing. Okay. So what we've got now, let's step back and conceptualize things a little bit more. We've got these melody paths or phrases in RapidComposer. We've got these phrases, and they're going to work over a particular chord progression. Okay? They're not going to work over any chord progression. They're going to work over this chord progression, the 1 6 2 5. They're designed to do that because all these notes are chord notes. Okay? So like when you have a D, okay, D is a chord note for the 2 chord, all right, DFA, but it's not a chord note for the 1 chord. So you're going to get dissonances. Now, of course, you could say, yeah, it's a chord note, it's a ninth, and that's true, but we're not dealing with we're not dealing with sophisticated harmony at this point. Okay, you can get into that and you can create scale phrases using ninths and extensions, but that's another topic entirely. Okay, let's just keep it simple. We're dealing with triad chords. Now, one thing you will notice is that some of these melody paths do use the 7th. Okay, they do use the 7th chord note, so they're not all triads. Okay, they will play. I think sometimes they play. Well, let's see. So we're looking for a 7th over like the first, over the C. Let's see. Yeah, right here you can see it. So we know that the first number here is going to be played over chord 1. Okay, and over the first measure, and the first measure is the 1 chord, C E G. So when you see the 7 here, they're singing or they're playing the B, which is the 7th, over the C chord. So that is, a C major 7th chord. So sometimes they'll play, sometimes they choose notes that form the 7th of the chord. It's not straight. When I say these are all chord tones, it's not straight triads. Sometimes they are including the 7th, which gives it more color, obviously. Okay, so I wanted to make that clear. But you won't see anything other, you won't see any extension above the triad other than the 7th. You're not going to see, sus chords, susses or ninths or anything else. Okay, all right. Okay, so I've explained the melody path and their nifty little system here of, I'm going to call it, of notation, and how we can duplicate these pretty easily in RapidComposer. And then what I did was I just dragged one of these. First I had to create my progression, and I'm assuming you know how to do that in RapidComposer. I think you could even find the 1625. It's probably under progressions. Under let's see, these are 3. Maybe major scale formulas? Yeah, I'm sure it's under here. It's got to be 162. It's got to be under here. There it is, right here. Okay. So you can just drag this in. You don't have to, type it. Alrighty. Okay. All right. So create yourself a new composition and drag in the chord progression like that. Okay. And you're good to go. All right. Now, once you do that, you're matching the chord progression with these phrases, what they call in improvising for real. Which, by the way, you'll see they refer to IFR. That's just an acronym for improvising for real. So if you see that, don't get confused. They'll say IFR. I'm going to call it IFR now because it's improvise for real is a bit of a mouthful. Okay, so you've got your progression up here, and these scale-based phrases, or scale note relative phrases, you've got in RapidComposer, and I name this major 1625 melody pass, so that when you're my thinking behind this, creating this folder, was that I know that these 20 or so phrases are only going to work. I shouldn't say only, because they probably will work under some other progressions, but basically they're made to work with this progression. So once you see that, you know what progression to put into RapidComposer, and then you can start dragging these phrases in. And you can, take it to the bank that every single one of these phrases will work over this progression. That's the whole point. Okay? All right. So now I can kind of move on to the variations. Now, why is the variations kind of critical to this step? Well, it's critical because these phrases are pretty vanilla. I mean, most of them are just 4 whole notes. Okay, and that can work. That'll work with certain melodies, ballads, or something. But there, you want to spice these up, obviously. And that was my idea. When I saw these melody paths, I'm thinking, okay, I like the idea, and I think I can use the variations to spice them up. And I think this what I came up with here, is proof that you can spice them up. So let's see how RapidComposer can take something as generic as these simple phrases and spice them up. Okay, so let's go to the first one. All right, now what I've got here, I've got 2 variations. I've got the apply melody. So if I take that off, we get the original 1-1-2-1-2-1-2. All right. So you can use the apply melody, and what I did was actually, and I don't remember which one I used, but I chose to do the apply melody. I chose one of these other melodies, these other phrases, and I just dragged it in. Okay. Now, so this is a new one. Let's hear this. Nice, right? And let's hear the whole thing. I'll make it a little louder. Okay. All right. So you know, you can drag these phrases in, and sometimes it's going to change the rhythm. Let me see if I can show you that. If I drag in, let's see. Let's try this one, 5. So here's one of the phrases that uses a whole note, 2 halves, a whole, and a whole. And we're going to put that over a whole and a whole. All right, so let's see what happens to our rhythm here. Okay, so what happened rhythmically is that this phrase has, in the second measure, it has 2 half notes. Okay, and our original phrase in the second measure had a whole note. It had a C. So this one here, 6/5, is A G. So it applied the A G to that one. So it changed the rhythm. Now we have something. Yeah, this is okay. Sorry for the pause here. Here's something really interesting. Notice that in the apply melody, the melody that I applied, I'm going to drag it in again just to confirm. I'll drag it up here. Okay. Now notice the melody that we dragged in has, on the third measure, on the third and fourth measure, it has a whole note. Okay? So the third measure is an A, which is a whole note. And the fourth measure is a G. Number 5 is a G. But what happened in the third measure, this is an A whole note. But here we have an A and a C. So what's happening is that you're actually, but when you drag these things in with over to the applied melody variation, you actually get a combination. It's not like we're just copying this phrase to, to the composition window. That's not what's happening. Okay, what's happening is that when you copy this phrase onto the apply melody, you get combinations of the 2 phrases. Okay, so what we had here in the third measure, we had a D and a C, and then when we applied the A to the D and the C, because the third measure of this phrase was an A, when we applied A to the D and the C, watch what happens. Okay, the A got applied to the first half note, but it didn't get applied to the C. The C was left over. Okay, so that's what I want you to see. That, this apply melody, at first glance, it may seem like all you're really doing is swapping melodies, but that's not what's happening. RapidComposer, this variation is more sophisticated than that, and it's pretty cool. Okay, so when you have the apply melody, will it'll combine with the rhythm of the underlying melody in more in different ways. I think you kind of see what's happening. I'm not going to go too far into it because that could be a whole video in and of itself, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. but you get the idea. Anyway, bottom line is we took a simple phrase, we did the apply melody, and we jazzed it up. It's certainly, this phrase is a lot more interesting musically than C, D, C, D, C. Okay, I don't think there's any argument there. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, that was what we had, right? Yeah, you can read it here. We had C, C, D, C, D. Right. So we had 2 notes. Okay. All right. So that's what I did. The apply melody seems to work really well with these simple whole note, half note phrases. And then I just did down here. I just did the the harmony RapidComposer. Like, oh, I know what I did. I did I used the generator preset. And I just dragged in the chords. Where is that? Phrases. I use the generators. I just use the chord generator. I don't know why I'm having trouble. Oh, it's up here. Yeah. I use the chord generator. All right. Put it over there. And then I hit the magnets, okay, which gives it better voice leading. So that's all I did with the nylon guitar track. Now, this third track, vibraphone, this is where I was able to use, remember, I'm using exactly the same phrase in track 1 as I'm using, or I should say, in phrase 3, I'm using the same phrase that I'm using in track 1. So track 3, same phrase as track 1. But let's see what variations I had. So I'm using the apply melody, but what I added was this rhythm. Okay, and this was one of the rhythms in the list here, this 2/16. It's under 1 measure 4/4 duple. It's the 4th one down in the default install. You should have that. Okay, so I just dragged that. I dragged that over to the apply rhythm and got that. Okay, so that's how I ended up with this rhythm. Now it did do something. Notice here we've got 2 half notes on this rhythm, but here I mean, not yeah, 2 half notes, but it goes from A down to G, and here it just stays up at A. Not sure what's going on there. But I think it's got something to do with the, let's see, apply melody. Because we changed the rhythm. I'm not sure. I'd have to go and look at that. But in any event, it pretty well mirrors the phrase in track 3 pretty well mirrors the phrase in track 1, with the exception of this. And actually, I like that. Maybe if I take the apply rhythm off. No. Apply melody. That's interesting, because if I take the apply melody off of both phrases, they're both the same. And if I put this back, somehow this adding this rhythm to this phrase changes the notes here. I might have done something. It might have something to do with remove out of rhythm notes. That's not it. I don't know. But you know, happy accident, right? Happy accident. Looks like we've got a little bit of variation on this one too. We've got F and C, and up here we went to the A and C. So yeah, there's a little bit of a difference, but you know, when you're using these melody path phrases, the beauty is that it looks like no matter what you do with the notes are going to be chord tone notes, and it's going to work. Okay. So last thing I did is I applied some accents. I'm not going to go into that on this video because that's more a study of how this variation works. But you know, play around with this and see if you can kind of jazz up the phrase. This is, you know, such a rhythmic phrase. I thought, you know, the accents would kind of make it. It was a good candidate for applying some accents. So I'll change this a little bit. Yeah, you hear that, what difference that makes. It's kind of an odd accented pattern. Okay. All right. So, you know, to recap, when you go to this website, Improvise for Real, you'll see a bunch of ear training exercises over different chord progressions. Most of them are 4-chord progressions. They've got a 1-3-6-2. They've got a 2-5-1, and yeah. And of course, you could take this concept and make your own melody paths for, you know, any progression you want, really. All right. So I hope y'all. Oh, by the way, the other thing I wanted to talk about with this thing is that it seems like one thing that we cry out. We could use a structure editor here. Where's that? Oh yeah, here. And we could duplicate, you know, and then do stuff like change keys here, or you know, stuff like that. So you can, you know, kind of flesh this whole idea out a little bit more. Like we'll put a new scale, and we'll just make it E. Then I can copy. Oops. All right, let's check that out. I think what happened is like when I drag these, I made need some kind of inversion there. Yeah. But you get the idea. What I want to illustrate is what I should have done. I think, you know, I'm not clear on the best way to use these the structure editor. I was trying to duplicate, and I ended up, see, I hit the plus sign, which is add empty. And what I wanted to do is, okay, so let me, can I delete this? Let's see. Sure I can. All right, so we go here. I want to delete this, so let me hit X. And then what I want to do is I want to duplicate this. Okay, there we go. There we go. And then insert a new scale. We're going to do E major. Okay, that's what I want to do. Okay, now let's go. Let's hear that. Okay, it's kind of an abrupt, you know, unprepared key change there, but you get the idea. You know, you can take this idea here in the first part, and you know, duplicate it, flesh it out a little bit, and okay. So you know, let me know what you think in the comments. I'm sure other people have some oh, I had the mute on there. I'm sure people are going to come up with a lot of ideas, a lot of different ways to use this, but I thought that this was a terrific way of, you know, introducing scale note relative mapping and how it can be used in one way with RapidComposer. Okay? All right. Thanks a lot, guys. And again, Happy New Year to everybody.